What if the wrong seat on a plane was the first step to the life you never thought you deserved? Imagine a stranger sitting beside you. Someone who seems completely ordinary until a conversation sparks a chain of events that will turn your world upside down. This could be your turning point. But what if it's too late to turn back? Make sure to like and subscribe if you believe that sometimes the smallest decisions can change everything. I never thought sitting in the wrong seat would lead me here. Sitting across from a man who would alter the course of my life with just a few words. It wasn't the seat itself, of course. It was what happened once I was seated in it. I was cramped, tired, and on edge as I dragged my suitcase down the narrow aisle of the plane. There was an anxious knot in my stomach that had nothing to do with the flight ahead. It was the job interview I had coming up, the one I had poured everything into only for it to feel more like a last-ditch effort than a real chance. I could feel the weight of my own doubt pressing against my chest, but what else was there to do but board the plane, head to the city, and hope for the best? As I passed a row of empty seats, I caught a glimpse of an older man sitting by the window. His face was calm, almost stoic, but something about him caught my eye. His sharp, perfectly tailored suit, the confident, unbothered way he leaned back in his chair. There was a flicker of recognition in his gaze when I accidentally brushed my arm against his as I made my way down the aisle. But I didn't think much of it at first. I didn't have time to think about anything. My life was unfolding one tedious, disappointing moment after another. I finally found my seat, wedged between the window and an aisle that felt even more cramped than I remembered. I slid into the narrow space, trying to keep my attention focused on the task ahead, preparing for the inevitable rejection that seemed to follow me everywhere. As I settled in, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The seats were uncomfortable, the overhead bins clattered shut, but there was a strange stillness in the air. I adjusted my seatbelt and stared out the window at the sprawling city below, my mind occupied with the ghosts of the past few weeks. Just then, I felt a tap on my shoulder. "Excuse me," a voice said, cutting through my thoughts. I turned around to find the man I'd brushed past earlier standing in the aisle. He was looking at me with a calm expression, as if nothing about the situation was out of the ordinary. "I believe you're in my seat," he said, his tone polite yet firm, his voice carrying an air of quiet authority. I blinked, thrown off balance for a second before realizing my mistake. I must have misread the seating chart when I boarded. I stood up awkwardly to let him pass, my face flushed with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry," I mumbled, shifting my bag to make room for him. He smiled slightly, an almost imperceptible curve of his lips. "It's no trouble," he said, his voice steady, almost like he'd said those words 1,000 times before. He didn't seem bothered by my error, or perhaps he just wasn't the type to show it. As he took his seat beside me, I noticed a small but strange detail. His luggage, a sleek leather briefcase, was far too polished for the casual businessman I'd expected. His clothes were impeccable, and despite his seemingly casual demeanor, there was something commanding about him, something that suggested he wasn't just another corporate drone. He didn't seem to fit the usual mold of the tired businessman heading home after a long week. He looked too calculated. "Long day?" he asked, breaking the silence between us. I turned to face him, unsure of how to respond. His question felt almost too personal, but his calm demeanor made me think he wasn't expecting a deep answer. He was simply trying to start a conversation, as any normal passenger would. But I didn't know how to respond to that either. Could I really just talk to a stranger about the stress that had been weighing on me for months? "Yeah, something like that," I replied, forcing a small smile. My gaze shifted back to the window, but it wasn't the view outside that held my attention. It was this man, sitting beside me, his presence somehow both ordinary and extraordinary. There was a long, heavy pause. He didn't try to press further, but I could tell he was waiting for me to open up. It was a feeling I'd never had on a flight before, and it unsettled me. Then, he shifted in his seat and glanced at me again, his eyes softening, as if something had clicked in his mind. "You don't look like you're going to a vacation," he remarked casually. I turned back to him, taken aback by his perceptiveness. I wasn't sure what exactly gave it away. Perhaps it was the tight grip I had on my seatbelt, or maybe it was my half-hearted attempts to hide my stress. "No," I said with a short, forced laugh. "Definitely not a vacation." "I'm guessing business," he continued, not waiting for me to answer. It was like he was already piecing together my story without needing to hear it. You're one of those people who's always running on empty, aren't you? He said, his voice carrying a slight warmth, but the words themselves struck a little too close to home. I swallowed, unsure of whether to be offended or intrigued. I guess you could say that. It wasn't like I had much to hide. Anyone who knew me would have seen the signs. The endless string of failed attempts at success, the resumes sent to companies that never responded, the missed opportunities. Don't worry, he said, as if sensing my discomfort. We all go through moments like that. He looked out the window, then added in a softer tone. Sometimes, though, the right people come along at just the right time. His words lingered in the air, as if they carried a weight I hadn't yet grasped. I turned to him again, about to ask him what he meant when the plane started its ascent, rattling slightly. I couldn't shake the feeling that this man, this stranger, knew more than he was letting on, and that the chance encounter I thought was a simple accident was something far more deliberate. My heart raced. What was it about him that made me feel like I had just stepped into something much bigger than I could comprehend? But before I could ask him, he gave me a small, knowing smile. "I'll just say this," he began, his voice dropping to a more confidential tone. "You're in the right place at the right time. Just trust me on that." And for the first time in what felt like forever, I let myself believe it. The flight felt long, but I slowly began to relax as I talked to the man beside me, William Clark. Initially, I thought he was just another businessman, but something about him made me open up, something I hadn't done in a long time. We talked about my struggles, my dreams, and the job I was about to interview for. He asked simple questions, but with each answer, I felt myself shedding layers I didn't know I had built. William leaned in and asked, "What would you do if you could have anything? Your dream job, your dream life?" The question hit me hard. No one had ever asked me that before. I hesitated, then admitted that I wanted something more creative, something that challenged me, but I always felt like I wasn't good enough, like the door I was supposed to walk through was always locked. His smile was warm, understanding. "Maybe the door's not locked. Maybe you just need the right key." He told me his own story, how he had once been in my shoes, struggling and lost, until someone offered him a chance that changed everything. "Sometimes the right person comes along at the exact moment you need them," he said. "And they offer you an opportunity, not because you're perfect, but because they see something in you that you can't see yourself." By the time the captain announced our descent, my mind was racing. William's words stuck with me, and I couldn't help but wonder if this encounter was fate. Before we reached the gate, he handed me a sleek business card with no company name, just his name and a private number. "Think about it," he said. "I think you're the right person for a project I'm working on." I was left standing there, holding the card, unsure of what had just happened. But one thing was clear. Something had shifted, and I was standing on the edge of a new beginning. The next few days were a blur. I kept replaying the encounter with William over and over in my mind, his words echoing in the back of my head. "I think you're exactly the kind of person who could help make something big happen." But what did that even mean? Who was he, really? I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, that this whole thing was just too good to be true. I'd spent years convincing myself that success was out of reach, that the doors I wanted to walk through were reserved for people who had everything figured out. But William? He was different. He saw something in me, and for the first time in ages, I wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, he was right. I couldn't stop thinking about the card he had given me. The private number, no company name, no fancy title. Was he really who he said he was? I Googled his name countless times, trying to find something, anything, that would confirm what he had told me. But there was nothing. The more I searched, the less I found. No mention of a William Clark involved in any sort of public company or high-profile business venture. It was as if he didn't exist outside of that brief encounter on the plane. Yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that he was someone important, someone with connections that ran deeper than I could even imagine. I convinced myself to forget about it. He was just a stranger, after all, until one evening, as I was going through the motions of yet another thankless day at work, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen and felt my breath catch in my throat. It was him. "Are you free tomorrow?" The message read. "Let's meet. I think it's time we talk about the opportunity one mentioned." I couldn't type fast enough. My fingers trembled as I responded. "Yes, I'm free." "When and where?" The reply came swiftly. 10 a.m. at the Landmark Cafe on 5th. "I'll be waiting." The next morning, I woke up early, my mind buzzing with anticipation. I tried to calm myself, reminding myself that this could be just another fleeting moment, that nothing was guaranteed. But as I showered and dressed, the nervous energy inside me only grew. What was I walking into? A job offer? A business proposal? Or something else entirely? I arrived at the cafe with plenty of time to spare, trying to mask the jitteriness in my stomach. I ordered a coffee and sat at a table by the window, glancing around the room every few seconds. I couldn't help it. I wanted to see him again, to get a better sense of who he was, what he wanted from me. When the door swung open, my heart skipped a beat. William entered with the same calm, assured presence he'd had on the plane. He wore a sharp blazer, his dark hair slightly tousled as if he hadn't quite bothered to smooth it. He scanned the room before his gaze landed on me. "Glad you could make it," he said with a warm smile as he approached the table. I stood to greet him, suddenly feeling out of my element. "Of course," I said, my voice a little shakier than I intended. "Thanks for meeting with me." "No need to thank me," he said, sitting across from me. "You've been more than patient. I wanted to give you a chance to think things over, but I don't want to waste time. There's a lot I need to tell you." He paused, his eyes scanning my face as if he were reading me, weighing me in some way I didn't quite understand. "I think you already know this, but the opportunity I'm offering isn't something most people get," he continued, his tone growing more serious. "I'm not just looking for someone to fill a position in a company. I'm looking for someone who can help me reshape something bigger. Something that could change not just your life, but the lives of a lot of people." I felt a spark of excitement flicker inside me, but doubt quickly followed. "What kind of project are we talking about?" William leaned in slightly, his voice lowering, as if he was about to share something incredibly important. "I've been working on a new initiative. It's about helping people, helping the ones who've been overlooked, who've never had the opportunity to step up and change the world around them. I've built businesses and I've made a lot of money, but what I'm building now isn't about wealth. It's about impact." I couldn't help but lean forward, my curiosity piqued. "And you think I could be a part of that?" He nodded, a knowing smile on his lips. "I don't just think you could be a part of it, Elena. I believe you're exactly who I need. You've been through the grind. You know what it's like to struggle, to feel like the odds are against you. But you've also got something that others don't, resilience. A hunger for more than just the basics." His words hit me hard, like a punch to the chest. "But why me?" I asked, the question tumbling out before I could stop myself. "Why do you think I'm the right person?" He paused, his eyes locking with mine. "Because you're not afraid to take risks. You're not afraid to fail. And most importantly, you have the ability to see beyond your circumstances, to see the bigger picture. You've already done the hard part. You've survived the struggle. Now it's time to thrive. And I'm offering you a chance to do that." I could feel my breath catch in my throat. Everything he said felt so personal, so intimate. It was like he had seen through all the layers I'd carefully built around myself and recognized something I had only ever dreamed of: potential. I hesitated, the fear creeping back in. "And what's the catch?" I asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. "What's in this for you?" William sat back in his chair, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. "I'm not looking for anything for myself. What I'm offering you isn't about gaining something. It's about giving. Giving you the tools, the platform, and the support you need to finally step into the life you've always dreamed of. No more waiting, no more second-guessing. I want to give you the chance to prove to yourself that you can do more than survive. You can thrive. But I won't lie to you. It won't be easy. It will take everything you've got. But I believe in you." The words hung in the air between us, and for the first time, I didn't feel small. I felt seen. "Do you want to take that chance?" he asked, his voice soft but firm. I looked at him, the man who had given me nothing but encouragement and the keys to a future I hadn't even dared to imagine. "Yeah," I said, my voice steady now. "I'm ready." And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just a job offer. It was the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter one wasn't going to let slip away.